Moving to the suburbs is usually a sign of surrender. You know the story. People get tired of city noise, of overpriced coffee and neighbors who play EDM at 3 a.m. So they flee to a quiet cul-de-sac where everyone owns 2 dogs, 3 kayaks, and 4 pairs of cargo shorts. That's the legend, anyway. In my case, the legend was helpful. It made people lower their guard. On paper, I was your average 30-something desk jockey with weak coffee habits and a strong disdain for confrontation. The kind of guy you might see in the cereal aisle trying to remember which almond milk his girlfriend likes. But in reality, I worked for a certain 3-letter agency that doesn't officially exist, and my job was to sniff out the kind of financial rot that hides behind gated communities and HOA bulletins. White-collar parasites. Paperwork predators. People like Karen. Oh, right. Her. Karen Montrose. Self-appointed queen of Birchwood Glen Estates, reigning sovereign of every mailbox, picket fence, and dog poop bag in the vicinity. Her rule was absolute. Her weapon of choice? A leather clipboard that might as well have been Thor's hammer, judging by how she wielded it. Whispers about Karen had trickled into my department after an unusual number of complaints surfaced across the state. Sketchy fines. Disappearing HOA dues. Residents too scared or too exhausted to fight back. The place stank of corruption, but no one could quite nail it down. That's where I came in. So I moved into 114 Meadowlark Lane with a U-Haul full of fake IKEA boxes and enough backstory to make a Netflix character jealous. Just me, a rented house, and a smile bland enough to make mayo look spicy. I was barely halfway through unpacking when she appeared. Clipboard in hand. Platinum blonde bob so stiff it looked heat-sealed. Pink pastel cardigan like she'd mugged a grandmother. The expression? Somewhere between constipated and divine judgment. She didn't introduce herself. She simply declared, "You left your trash can out past 8 a.m. That's a fine." I blinked. "Nice to meet you too." She frowned, already scribbling. Rule 7B. Also, your mailbox is 2 inches too tall. That's another citation. You're new, so I'll waive the 3rd. Oh, how generous, I muttered, mentally noting the model number of her Mont Blanc pen. She cocked her head, the way a hawk might when deciding whether to swoop. You'll find we keep order around here. No exceptions. I gave her the look I'd spent years perfecting. Harmless, sheepish, entirely unremarkable. I'm just a paper pusher. Rules are rules, right? She smiled for the first time. The kind of smile that suggests she's already imagining billing you for breathing too loud. Good, she said. I like obedient ones. As she turned and strutted off like she was walking a red carpet for dictators, I let a small smirk curl at the corner of my mouth. Let the games begin. For the next week, the fines came like clockwork. Monday, unauthorized lawn ornament. My gnome was apparently a threat to national security. Tuesday, window blinds not HOA compliant. Wednesday, bicycle in driveway for more than 10 minutes. At one point I got a warning for my porch light being too bright. I was half expecting a fine for my smile being too smug. Each time, I thanked her politely, paid nothing, and tucked the citation neatly into a growing folder in my kitchen drawer. Which, by the way, I'd bugged for audio recording. The whole house was wired tighter than a casino vault. Karen, bless her gold-plated soul, didn't suspect a thing. To her, I was just another spineless suburbanite. The kind who apologizes for breathing wrong and pays a $75 fine because his grass grew half an inch too tall. She had no idea that the citations she so lovingly issued were riddled with illegal fees, unsupported by any actual HOA charter. I knew because I'd read the actual bylaws she hadn't touched in 6 years, buried under 15 pages of glossy newsletters about dog poop and summer potlucks. Each day, her arrogance grew. Each day, so did my case. The real break came when she tried to impose a community beautification levy, a $300 fee with zero documentation on how the funds would be used. I traced the fake invoices straight to a shell account tied to a landscaping company registered under the name KLM Property Enhancements. KLM. Karen Louise Montrose. She wasn't even subtle. Just lazy. At this point, I could have contacted my team and wrapped the case. But no, that wouldn't be satisfying. Karen didn't just steal money. She humiliated people. She made them feel small, powerless, like she ruled their lives because she controlled the HOA minutes. She deserved a show. And lucky for her, I was in the mood to host one. The more fines I racked up, the more Karen strutted through the neighborhood like she was Napoleon in yoga pants. It was almost adorable. Almost. She had this routine. Clipboard tucked under one arm, overpriced coffee in the other, marching from house to house in what I assumed she thought was a show of leadership. Really, it looked like a toddler imitating a mall cop. Still, the clipboard did hold power, or, at least, people thought it did. And that was the problem. After 2 weeks, I had enough citations to wallpaper my guest bathroom. And every single one was evidence. Every misquoted bylaw. Every magically inflated administrative processing fee. Every check written by terrified homeowners and cashed through one of her ghost accounts. She didn't even try to hide her lifestyle. While the rest of the neighborhood drove modest sedans and secondhand SUVs, Karen rolled around in a brand new Lexus SUV, one of the fancy ones with the touchscreen dashboard that probably costs more than my entire fake life. "Oh, my nephew bought it for me," she chirped to one neighbor, who gave a tight-lipped nod. Everyone knew Karen didn't have a nephew. Or if she did, he was laundering HOA money through a Lexus dealership. My favorite moment, though, came on a Tuesday. She marched up my driveway, handed me a neon orange envelope, and said, "You've been fined $120 for operating an unapproved satellite dish." I looked up at my roof. "No dish. I don't have one." She sniffed. "You look like someone who would, though. Consider it a preemptive warning." That one almost made me laugh out loud. I took the envelope and gave her my best, harmless squirrel smile. Wouldn't want to be a troublemaker. She gave me a dismissive little wave, like she was blessing me. "Just keep following the rules, and we'll get along fine." Oh, Karen. Sweet, delusional Karen. Meanwhile, I'd already identified 4 different slush funds tied to her personal accounts. One hilariously named HOA Event Coordination, which had somehow funded a weekend spa trip to Palm Springs. Unless event coordination now meant deep tissue massages and mimosas. Every time she fined someone, I logged it. Every time she deposited a check, I traced it. I even dug into her vendor contracts and found one for emergency tree removal services, billed monthly, in a neighborhood with exactly 0 trees taller than 6 feet. She wasn't running an HOA. She was running a racket. Still, she kept going. And the residents? They were too beaten down to resist. I talked to a few, casually of course. One woman, Sandra, said she once got fined for hanging wind chimes that created an auditory disturbance. Another guy got hit with a $200 charge for watering his lawn on the wrong day, even though he didn't have sprinklers. Just a hose and a stubborn patch of crabgrass. "Why don't you all push back?" I asked one evening, leaning on a fence like a friendly neighbor who doesn't carry a badge. Sandra looked both ways like she was about to share state secrets. She's connected. Or says she is. Last guy who fought back got hit with backdated fines and some legal threat. Had to move out. No one wants the trouble. Karen ruled through fear, paperwork, and a complete lack of oversight. Classic small-time tyrant behavior. Which meant she was ripe for a takedown. Especially now, because word came through from my contact. The state auditor's office was finally ready to move. All they needed was a trigger. A public moment. Something that couldn't be swept under the rug. I didn't have to wait long. The invitation came in the form of a beige flyer taped to every mailbox. Special community meeting, urgent attendance required. This Thursday, 7 p.m., Community Hall. Agenda, important financial updates and HOA fee adjustments. Bingo. I'd seen this play before. She was going to raise the tribute again, maybe double it, maybe add a new fee for seasonal lighting violations or excessive bird activity. It didn't matter. She thought she was untouchable. That's always when they fall. The night before the meeting, I sat at my kitchen table and flipped through the file. Every page neatly organized. Every document cross-referenced. Every illegal transaction highlighted. I'd even printed out a color-coded chart, because if you're going to take down a clipboard tyrant, you do it with style. Thursday came. The air was thick with humidity and tension. I arrived early, took a front row seat, and watched as the room slowly filled. The residents sat quietly, glancing at each other with that familiar blend of suspicion and resignation. A few nodded at me, the harmless new guy. Then the door slammed open. Karen strode in, clipboard in hand, flanked by two of her lackeys, one of whom looked like she'd sell out her own dog for a seat on the beautification committee. Karen's heels clacked against the tile floor like gunfire. She climbed onto the small stage at the front, cleared her throat dramatically, and raised the clipboard. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice dripping with performative charm. "As you know, our community has been growing, and with that comes increased responsibility. Therefore, starting next week, HOA dues will increase by $150 per household to support new landscaping, security improvements, and administrative costs." A low murmur spread across the room. People shifted in their seats. Someone coughed nervously. But, as always, no one stood up. Karen smiled smugly and did her little scan, the slow predator gaze she used to make sure everyone was sufficiently cowed. And then her eyes landed on me. Still smiling. Still sitting in the front row. She raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Clark, was it? Any questions?" I stood up slowly, smoothed my tie, and said, loud enough for the room to hear, "Actually, yes. This increase won't go into effect next week." A pause. She frowned. "And why is that?" "Because next week, you'll be in court." The room froze. You could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing. Karen's clipboard faltered in her hand. "And probably jail the week after," I added helpfully. Gasps. Audible gasps. One guy actually dropped his coffee. Karen blinked like she'd just been slapped with a frozen fish. "What? What are you talking about? You insignificant little gnat." I pulled a thick folder from my satchel and tossed it onto the table in front of her with a satisfying thud. "Here's a breakdown," I said. "Unlawful fines, embezzlement, fraudulent billing, tax evasion. There's enough in there for 2 life sentences." Her jaw hit the floor. Not metaphorically. Literally. Mouth open, eyes wide, cheeks pale. I turned toward the stunned crowd and raised my voice just a bit. "Ladies and gentlemen, the HOA Queen is officially dethroned." Karen didn't take it well. Which, of course, was the best part. The room had gone from polite suburban boredom to open-mouth chaos in under 10 seconds. You'd think someone had announced a meteor strike, or that Target was permanently closing. But there she was, standing dead center in her little fiefdom, surrounded by subjects who were now starting to realize they didn't have to bow anymore. "What? What is this?" Karen hissed, flipping open the folder. "These are lies. Fabrications. You probably photoshopped all this." "Karen," I said, stepping forward, "unless Photoshop can fake bank transactions, shell companies, 3 forged vendor contracts, and a $4,200 sushi dinner logged as office supplies, I think you're in trouble." She sputtered. "This is an attack. I knew you were trouble the second I saw those cheap loafers. Who are you?" I straightened my glasses and gave her the faintest, most irritatingly pleasant smile. "Let's just say I work in receipts. And yours are very, very interesting." Her face went through all 5 stages of grief in about 10 seconds, then added a bonus 6th. Pure, uncut Karen rage. "None of this will hold up. You're not even a real resident. You don't even belong here." "That's true," I said with a shrug. "But you know what else is true? That guy, the one in the blue polo, trying really hard not to laugh. He does live here." Karen whipped around to see the man rise, holding a badge just high enough for her to see, but not the whole room. "State Investigator, Office of Financial Crimes." She paled. "Oh no. Oh no, no, no." "Yep," I nodded. "This wasn't just me. There's a full investigation. You were just too busy handing out window blind fines to notice." Her eyes darted to the exit. "You have nothing. I've got lawyers. I know people." "Sure," I said, stepping aside. Then I raised my hand. The back door opened. 2 uniformed officers stepped into the room like they'd been waiting for this moment all week. And honestly, they probably had. Karen backed away, hands trembling, clipboard clutched to her chest like a security blanket. "This is illegal," she screamed. "You can't just walk in and arrest me in front of my people." "Funny thing about your people," I said, glancing at the crowd. They don't seem too loyal right now. She turned to the room, scanning for support, for even one friendly face. But all she saw were years of suppressed frustration and mortgage payments wrapped in HOA fees. Sandra stood near the back. She didn't speak. She just slowly clapped. One by one, the others joined in. Quietly at first, then louder. Karen screamed like a banshee as the officers took her by the arms. "You can't do this to me. I am this community. And now," I said, as they clicked the cuffs into place, "you're leaving it. Please don't forget your clipboard." She shrieked all the way out the door. It was beautiful. After she was gone, the silence in the room was strange. Tense. Not relieved yet, like everyone was waiting to wake up from a dream where the villain got exactly what they deserved. I turned, dusted off my hands, and said, "So, who's ready to talk about actual bylaws?" That finally broke the spell. Laughter rippled across the room, the awkward, bewildered kind. The sound of pressure valves hissing open after years of petty oppression. Then someone said it. "Wait a minute. You're not really Clark, are you?" I looked over my shoulder. It was Jeff from 112, the one who always wore socks with sandals and got fined for excessive front yard flamingo population. I raised an eyebrow. "Define really." Another voice piped up from the crowd. "You're like some kind of secret agent HOA destroyer?" A chuckle escaped me. "Let's call it freelance paperwork auditing. With handcuffs. But your name's Clark," someone else added. "Like Clark Kent." I gave a long, theatrical sigh, adjusted my glasses, and smiled. "Yeah, funny how that worked out." They all stared. Someone whispered, "No way." Before anyone else could ask a follow-up, I gave a quick nod, straightened my tie, and headed for the door. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. The mission was done. Karen's trial was a local event of mythic proportions. News vans, courtroom sketches. One amateur podcaster live-streaming reactions like it was the Super Bowl. She pleaded not guilty, naturally, but with a mountain of evidence and 3 former board members flipping on her like gymnast cheerleaders, it was over before it started. The judge didn't even flinch when he handed down the sentence. 7 years, no parole. Karen's reaction made headlines. Something about a broken heel and an overturned chair. They actually had to pause court proceedings because someone tried to bring her a fresh latte from her usual cafe. Yeah, that didn't go over well. Meanwhile, things in Birchwood Glen began to shift. A new HOA board was elected. Sandra ended up on it. Turns out she actually read the bylaws and had a healthy fear of turning into a dictator in a pantsuit. All Karen's previous fines were officially nullified. The HOA fees were restructured. Transparent accounting, published budgets. The whole neighborhood felt like it had been through a detox cleanse. Meanwhile, Karen was adjusting to her new surroundings. Let's just say, the HOA in county jail had slightly different rules. A former inmate, yes, we have those contacts, said she'd already tried to institute a cell cleanliness policy. That ended after someone dunked her clipboard replica in a toilet. Ah, poetic justice. Her appeal was denied. Twice. Turns out, judges don't love being told they lack aesthetic vision or don't understand suburban governance. Go figure. The best part? One of the state representatives reached out to the new board. Apparently, our little scandal made it all the way to the Capitol. They were considering new HOA oversight legislation, using Birchwood Glen as a cautionary tale. I mean, when your HOA ends up trending on social media under hashtag clipboard coup, people pay attention. There were even rumors of a docuseries. Netflix passed, something about it being too depressingly real. But a startup streamer expressed interest. They wanted to interview me. I declined, obviously. Can't exactly go on camera when your entire job depends on being forgettable. And me? Well, I was gone. 2 weeks after the takedown, my rented house stood quiet. The curtains drawn. The lawn freshly mowed. A little sign stuck in the yard. For rent. Packing up was easy. I never really unpacked in the first place. My job doesn't come with housewarming gifts or slow cookers. Just burner phones, ID kits, and an iron stomach for small talk. As I loaded the last box into the trunk, I noticed Sandra standing by the sidewalk, arms crossed, watching. "You're just gonna vanish, huh?" she called out. I smiled. That's kind of my thing. She stepped closer. You really not going to tell anyone who you are? Sure I will. As soon as someone shows me a legal fine for identity concealment within a planned residential development. She laughed. Real, genuine, still a little suspicious. I should fine you for disappearing, she said. Sorry, I shrugged. Karen already maxed out my ridiculous fine quota. She extended a hand. Thank you. I took it. Don't thank me. I just helped shine the light. You guys cleaned house. She let go, then tilted her head. So what happens if another clipboard queen shows up? I slid into the driver's seat, adjusted my glasses, and smiled one last time. Then you know what to do. 2 months later, I was sitting in a diner 3 states over, halfway through a slice of pecan pie and reading a case file about a luxury high-rise scam in Chicago, when my phone buzzed. New email, subject, update from Birchwood Glen. It was from Sandra. I opened it casually, not expecting much. It began with, we finally cleared out the HOA storage unit. You'd be amazed how much junk Karen hoarded. Old decorations, 20 unopened clipboards, a weird porcelain cat labeled executive mascot. I nearly choked on the pie. She went on. We turned the unit into a community lending space. Tools, lawn equipment, folding chairs. You know, stuff people actually need. And we threw a burn the clipboard party. Literal bonfire. Literal clipboards. People danced. It was weird. It was perfect. I smiled. She attached a photo. It showed a circle of neighbors standing around a fire pit in someone's backyard. A stack of old clipboards smoldered at the center. Someone held a sign that read, no more royalty, just community. Off to the side, someone had propped up a lawn gnome with sunglasses and a tiny sign of his own. I survived Karen. I set my fork down. The email ended with, if you ever find yourself nearby, you've got a plate at the next barbecue. No permit required. That night, I updated my case notes. The Birchwood Glen file got stamped closed. Final notes. Primary subject, Karen Louise Montrose. Charges, embezzlement, fraud, tax evasion, HOA code abuse. Not technically a legal term, but I made it one. Sentence, 7 years, no parole. Outcome, HOA restructured, refunds processed, community stabilized. Subject's clipboard, presumed incinerated. Witness gnome, alive and well. Then I slid the file into the locked case under my bed, next to 6 others like it. Different cities. Different tyrants. Same pattern. Some people want control. Not to help, not to build, but to own. Their names change. Their tactics shift. But the clipboard remains, a symbol of self-inflated power wrapped in passive-aggressive bullet points. And that's why I do what I do. To remind them that no matter how high they climb on their little paper kingdoms, I'll be there, smiling, polite, harmless looking, and ready to burn it down, one fraudulent fee at a time. A week later, I was already deep in my next assignment. A condo association in Florida where the president fined a resident $50 per leaf for excess foliage disturbance. Apparently, fall wasn't part of the HOA-approved climate aesthetic. Yeah, these people never learn. But if you're ever sipping coffee on your porch and someone new moves in across the street, he might seem quiet, unassuming, the kind of guy who trims his hedges with a ruler and waves at dogs before people. And if a clipboard queen or king starts sending out threats again, just know, he's already watching, already smiling, already building the folder. Because justice wears glasses, and sometimes khakis. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.